Computer. We are recording. Welcome to Art 117. So let's start this thing by talking about this new wrinkle that I have in basic design this year, the idea of participating in the Invent Oregon concept. So I'm going to have to do a share screen to show you the guys this thing. And so where is Invent Oregon? Let's see. I can't see it. I can't find it. It's supposed to be here. Let's see if this is the screen for me. Is it up here? Whoop, where did you go? Invent Oregon, where are you? I just had you open on the desktop. Let me just go down here and see if I can find it. Where are you? That's that, that's that. Stop the share. Okay. I have to pause you guys just a second so I can find my stupid thing that I just opened up and now that I can't find it anymore. What is this? Okay, Invent Oregon, where are you? Let's see here. I got to pause you guys just a little bit more. Hang with me for just a second. I really need this. I can't minimize Zoom while I'm recording this meeting. You are really a pain in the butt, you know that. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording, and then I need to minimize you guys to go look for something because this is important recording. Okay, let's try the screen share again. Where is my thing? Oh, downloads. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so was it here? It doesn't know how to do it. Oh, shoot. Okay, it's a PDF. So where are my PDF files? And where can I do this? And why can't I open this? What would I open it in Chrome? Oh, it's going to let me open it in Chrome. Yay, fantastic. Okay, I'm going to stop the share. Then I'm going to come back and resume the share so I can show this thing to you. Thank God. Oh, right. Let's do this. So full screen, minimize this screen. Okay. Maximize this thing to one slide. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to resume the share one more time. So somebody tell me, can you see this on your screen? It says Invent Oregon. Can you guys see this slideshow?
Yeah, I can see it.
Thank you. Thank God. Thank God for Ethan. All right. Fantastic. So Invent Oregon. So this is an information slideshow for student teams. This is Oregon's only statewide invention competition, and they're so cool about this. This is run mostly through the physics and science departments at colleges and universities across Oregon. And it's also co-sponsored by lots of businesses and the business community and business development centers and that kind of thing. So the idea is to take your idea from an idea to a prototype in 90 days. Invent Oregon is the state's largest prototyping competition for college and university students. Students from all disciplines take their invention from idea to prototype in less than 90 days with the help from mentors, business development, and product design resources, and up to $2,500 in a prototyping grant. So there you go. There's money available for this. What is the student impact from Invent Oregon? Well, you can see that very high students agree with these statements. 3/4 of students say that Invent Oregon helped them see themselves as inventors, or 3/4 of students will likely or definitely pursue commercializing their invention after participating in this. 3/4 say that Invent Oregon helped them gain access to resources and make valuable connections to help further their prototype. And almost 3/4 say that Invent Oregon helped them refine their business model. So you may or may not want to have a business. You may or may not feel like you're an inventor, but if you go through this process with me, if you go through this process with the team, you'll gain valuable experience and valuable insights into the business world, the inventing world, and the design world. And since this is a 3D design class, that would be really good for us to do. Who's eligible? Student teams from any discipline with a concept based on a new invention or an innovation based on existing technology. The inventions must address solutions that will impact communities or people's lives or have an impact at scale in markets. And teams must consist of 2 or more people. At least one team member must be an eligible student, directly affiliated with an Oregon College university, and faculty members cannot participate as team members. We recommend that teams consist of 1 technical and 1 business lead. So there's that. That's a little bit squishy. I can't be a team member, but I can offer as much help as I possibly can, including this first generation prototype of a mask that I'm working with. And I thought we would do this kind of based on the idea of the COVID mask concept, because I cannot think of any project or invention that would be more important to saving mankind, to saving humanity, than an effective, attractive, and functional COVID mask that people would actually want to wear. So this is really weird. The Invent Oregon timeline does not really work for people in quarter-based education systems. This works really well with people who are in semester kinds of education systems, like universities for the most part. So from November to April, there are local competitions where we have something like a science fair. We're calling it a what are we calling it? We're calling it a showcase of inventions. And that for us is going to happen next week on April 8th. We're going to have our local competition. It's going to be online. And basically, it's probably going to be us and 1 other team from the physics department here at the college. So it's going to be really small. Then from April through June, there's this semifinal and final projects thing happening, where if we become a semifinalist, we get to go to Invent Oregon Boot Camp, and this is probably going to be something that is going to be virtual this year, online, where we learn how to develop and market our product. And then in June, we would take our development and marketing project and we would take it to the Invent Oregon Collegiate Challenge Finals and present it to the people who would be judging this thing and trying to find something. It's a lot like Shark Tank. It's a lot like taking your business idea or your invention in front of a bunch of investors and people like that, and trying to get them to green light and or invest in your idea or business. So it's kind of an interesting concept. So why participate in Invent Oregon? Because you make connections, you get exposure, you are exposed to funding and resources that you as a student would never have access to. So it's really kind of a cool thing. And see this person standing on a stage right here? That was the concept before the pandemic, the idea of that we would go to a convention in the spring, in June, and present these ideas on a stage to an auditorium filled with people and pitch our ideas. And like a beauty contest or any other kind of contest, we get voted on, we get judged on the merits of our presentation and the sexiness of our product and its design. So that's the idea of how that works. You know, you get exposure because you get to be the student designer that is out there promoting your idea and your concept, and you have the ability to win stuff, to be an achieving person, to get cash and money, to be able to develop your project, or to put you in connection with already existing businesses so that they could manufacture and promote your project as a partner with you. So that's the concept with this. And I'm just going to slip through some of these other slides. Here are all the community colleges plus the universities in Oregon that would be participating in Invent Oregon. And I think I'm going to leave it there because that's the concept. That's the basic concept. So that was my 7-minute pitch about Invent Oregon. I want you to think about that and let that kind of fester on the back burner in the back of your mind while we are talking about masks and mask design today. And then after another 30 or 40 minutes, I'm going to ask to see whether there's actually anybody who would be interested in being on my team. The team that I can't be on, but the team that I would certainly be feeding ideas, strategies, pitches, speeches. I mean, I've got all of this stuff kind of already written here in terms of how to pitch this idea for this new invention of a COVID mask that we're working on. And you will be on this team whether you actually want to get up on a stage and present this or not, because everybody in this class is going to be inventing their mask this week. This is our first design project. We're all working on some form of a fabric COVID mask design. So we're all going to be playing with variations on this theme. And right now I'm going to tell you that if you don't know how to sew and you can't get out and you can't come over here and sew it on my sewing machine over the weekend, you can even make your mask out of paper. You can make a paper prototype mask. All I'm asking is that in three-dimensional design, we make a three-dimensional mask that is prototyped that will actually, fit around your face so that you can show us, on webcam or whatever, how this mask fits on your face and what are the design features that really work with your mask and your mask design as we move forward. And we'll get to all of that. I just wanted to kind of show you that the class is doing this anyway. And for those of you who would be bold and initiative based enough that you wanted to maybe take it to the next level and be on a stage and be able to pitch this idea and get famous for it or get rich for it or something like that, that's a possibility with this Invent Oregon process. So having said all that, let me dive into another screen share, because it's going to be death by screen share today. I assure you we're going to be doing death by screen share. So I need to change gears a little bit and talk about the history of masks, especially masks that kind of fight infection, that try to prevent transmission of airborne disease and stuff like that. I've gone ahead and prototyped the idea. The name of our mask says Oregon Designs COVID Mask. So this is a little bit more for the presentation to Invent Oregon than anything else. Trying to come up with a company name and something that inspires people in terms of Oregon and the idea of design, and that this is a cool thing and all of that. So there's a prototype thing for you. It's not something we have to stick with, but that's the idea. We're combining the best aspects of the Olson cloth mask and an N95 respirator design. So we have to go in and learn what these two kinds of masks are and where masks came from anyway. So that's not supposed to be there. Okay, so let's go back to the plagues that plagued Europe at the end of the Middle Ages and into the beginning of the Renaissance. And so we are used to seeing this plague doctor, images of the plague doctor from the Middle Ages in Europe when there was the Black Death, the Black Plague, and the doctor actually wore this mask over his or her face, mostly his face, but not just the mask, it was the full length cloak to try to keep you away from whatever it was that was infecting people and killing them. And so the cloak was coated in wax and oily materials to try to make it impermeable, kind of like a raincoat, because people didn't know anything about germ theory. They thought that maybe the really bad smells of everybody dying and also the idea of having sewage in the streets and stuff like that was the way that disease was transmitted. And so the idea was the miasma concept, the idea that diseases were transmitted through the air because they smelled bad, and because if it was bad air and bad smelling air, that it transmitted somehow the disease from person to person, and that's how it spread. So plague doctors wore this mask with a bird-like beak to protect them from the infections. that they believed were airborne. In fact, they thought the disease was spread by miasma, which is the word that was coined at the time, a noxious form of bad air. And so to battle the imaginary threat, the long beak was packed with sweet smells, such as dried flowers, herbs, and spices, so that by the time you were pulling the air into your mouth and nose through the holes in the front end of that beak mask, you were getting sweet smelling stuff and not the stench of death and dying and sewage in the streets. So I'm assuming that that mask was like paper mache. So a paper mache mask would be relatively lightweight. It would have a shape that was self-sustaining and kind of a stiff, solid shape to it, lightweight shape, and hollow, so that it wouldn't pull down on the front of their face too much, and especially if you're going to load it up with a bunch of stuff like potpourri. Potpourri is dried flower petals and stuff like that, which is the idea of putting these things into the beak. Other historians talk about incense, that sometimes people put actual incense of different kinds into the mask to try to stifle the scent of the bad smells that were out there. So anyway, there's the idea of the plague doctor mask. Let's keep going with it. It was I'm calling it PPE. PPE stands for personal protective equipment. That's what we're calling masks, gloves, goggles, face shields, anything that protects you as a healthcare worker, as a frontline worker, anything that protects you in industrial America, manufacturing these days, from getting hurt by loud noises or getting your eyes hurt or anything else, is called protective personal equipment, PPE. So although the beak mask has become an iconic symbol of the Black Death, there's no evidence that it was actually worn in the 14th century epidemic, which happened in the 1300s. The invention of the beak doctor costume is attributed to a French doctor named Charles Delorme in 1619. So that was even after the Italian Renaissance. That's in the Baroque period in the 1600s. He designed the bird mask to be worn with a large wax coat as a form of head-to-toe protection modeled on a soldier's armor. And again, this was during yet another plague that was going through certain towns in Southern Europe and killing a lot of people. The costume was worn by plague doctors during the plague of 1656, which killed 145,000 people in Rome and 300,000 people in Naples. So it's definitely running through the Italian peninsula, and there was still a lot of death in the cities from plagues, as we are kind of aware of in our world history. Moving forward. Okay, so we're going to go to the inventor of the actual surgical face mask. He is a Chinese man named Dr. Wu Lin-Tai. So I saw this on Google last month, and I just about couldn't believe it, that this was actually, his birthday, or, it coincided with this. And this kind of takes us back to the last epidemic, the Spanish flu of 1918, and what was happening at the turn of the 20th century with personal protective equipment and the idea of wearing masks either in surgery for doctors so that doctors wouldn't infect their own patients when they were doing surgery on their patients, and the idea of trying to protect yourself in a plague from airborne diseases. So back on Wednesday, March 10th, Google celebrated the inventor of the surgical face mask. The date was the 142nd birthday of Chinese-Malaysian epidemiologist Dr. Wu Lin-Tai. Dr. Wu invented the surgical face mask made out of cloth, probably cotton fabric, considered the precursor to the N95 mask in response to the Manchurian plague, which spread in northwestern China in 1910, according to a biography of Dr. Wu. The Chinese government appointed Wu to investigate the disease, which he did identify as the highly contagious pneumonic plague that spread from human to human through respiratory transmission. A pneumonia is a bacterial infection of the lungs. but it is still a respiratory disease that's spread through the air. And so that's why the mask is really important. Wu designed and produced a special surgical mask with cotton and gauze, adding several layers of cloth to filter the breathing of the wearer of the mask. So we're going to move from this stuff pretty quickly. During the 1918-19 influenza pandemic, wearing a mask became mandatory for police forces, medical workers, and even residents in some US cities, although its use was often controversial, just like it is today 100 years later. In cities like San Francisco, the decline in deaths from influenza was partly attributed to the mandatory mask-wearing policies. So we can see these nurses with a pile of cotton masks, all clean and white and ready to go, as a way of creating a barrier and slightly filtration to be able to try to cut down on airborne particles and the transmission of disease, of respiratory disease. So moving forward, I was sleeping, half asleep one night, and at 3 a.m. I woke up and I had my iPhone on and I was listening to all kinds of NPR stuff and all kinds of NPR podcasts, because I always do that all night long, even though I'm sleeping and I don't hear any of this stuff. And it was in the middle of Throughline, the NPR podcast Throughline. And I was listening to the history of the development of the N95 mask. I couldn't believe it. Oh, I forgot to put her name in here. Shit, I forgot to put her name in here, because I looked that up and I found out what her name was, because it's in the Throughline episode. Anyway, I got so excited that I started making this presentation for you guys. So she's a pioneer female industrial designer working for 3M. 3M is a huge company that makes things like Scotch tape and Post-it notes, and it used to make things like magnetic tape for the recording industry back in the 1970s, when the recording industry was using lots and lots of magnetic tape for cassette tapes and everything. 3M is actually Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. Those are the 3 M's in 3M. And so it's a corporation based in Minnesota with manufacturing around the world. And now 3M makes the N95 mask, among other kinds of products that it makes for PPE for folks. So this designer, God, I'm sorry, I don't have her name up here right now. It's going to be on a future slide. She was working at 3M, and 3M wanted her to work with non-woven kind of melt-blown materials like nylon and other man-made materials, not natural occurring materials, fibers, to create different kinds of products out of this new kind of plastic-oriented kind of fibrous stuff. And they were really interested in the idea of making bras, brassiere cups out of this stuff. And so eventually the Playtex Living bra, which you guys don't remember, but the advertisements in the 1950s and 60s were all about this brand new brassiere design that was molded instead of sewn, so that it was molded to the shape of a breast, so that it would support the breast form better. Anyway, she thought that that would make a wonderful mask design for personal protective equipment. And so she wanted to take that bra cup and turn it into a mask. And so that's where the N95 mask came from. And of course, she met a lot of resistance and a lot of bullshit at the company and among designers and engineers and everything else that she had to fight over the years to get her design made. But she won and eventually got her design made. This is the Throughline episode. I'm going to post this someplace in our coursework or something, so that you can actually download this and listen to it. It's about a 10-minute podcast. It's a radio broadcast, so there's nothing visual about it, but it talks about her story as a designer with 3M. Got to keep going here. So we're going to switch gears now to talk about the Olson style mask. Lila Mae Olson was a nurse, also in Minnesota, who ultimately wound up at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, as a nurse. And around the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century, in the 19 teens or so, she was very interested in trying to be able to have nurses and healthcare professionals be able to invent and manufacture their own stuff when they needed it and not just depend on what was available out there in the world. And one of the things she came up with was the Olsen style mask. The Olsen style mask has a rounded, almost cone shape appearance, but it's based on sewing two pieces of flat material together along a seam that opens up and creates the Olsen style mask that I've been showing you guys for a couple of days now. The double layer mask in this style works better than the single layer cotton mask that she came up with. But the double layer mask, allows for the containment of more droplets from the wearer's respiration. So it performs a double kind of a thing. It keeps your respiration droplets to yourself so that you're not transmitting them to others, and it provides a barrier so that you don't get other people's airborne droplets breathed into your lungs so that you can catch their disease. That's the idea of the mask. It is both barrier and filter to some degree. Lila Mae Olsen was a nurse in Minnesota working in the early 20th century. She became director of nursing at the Mayo Clinic. Her book, Improvised Equipment in the Home Care of the Sick, was originally published in 1928 and revised in 1933. So when I say Olsen mask, this is the Olsen that came up with the idea of this mask. And again, it's about 100 years old as a design, and we are now using it in the 20th century. A new modular mask, the Olsen, was named after Lila Mae Olsen, and it was quickly developed in early 2020 by clinicians from Unity Point Health Hospital, also in Minnesota, and was shared across the globe in the fight against COVID-19. These clinicians teamed up in the hospital's Generate prototyping space in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to create a series of experimental designs rooted in material science and ease of fabrication. No special instruments are required for making the mask, and the pattern is compatible with common mask patterns being released around the country. So this is where we come back to being designers and possible engineers as we adopt and play with the Olsen mask concept. These guys are in a prototyping lab, and really our own 3D design class is a prototyping lab, because we're going to take ideas and we're going to bounce them around, and we're going to morph them. We're going to pull on them and push on them and test them and see what we can do to try to make them a little bit better, a little bit prettier, a little bit sexier, a little bit more dynamic as an idea, and see if we can push that idea forward in terms of it being a better product and a better idea. Okay, I need to switch gears just a little bit to talk about another brand new thing came through in mid-March while I was putting this presentation together. A study came out: humidity in breath makes cotton more effective at being a filter and spreading the disease, spreading the virus of COVID-19. So the gist of this study that came out said cotton fabrics become better filters when they're exposed to humid conditions like your breath. When you breathe through a mask, the humidity from your breath starts to moisten the fibers in the mask. And those moistened fibers then become more adhesive. And the increased adhesion on the surfaces of those fibers in the mask allows other particles trying to pass through the mask to stick to the mask particles better, the mask fibers better. And so suddenly the filtration ability of the mask increases from it being dry fibrous fibers to being moistened fibers. And that's really cool. Moisture can aid fibers in attaching to aerosol particles and filtering pathogens. And I think that this is actually a video that I can play here if it's going to let me play it. Do you guys, I hope you can see this. This one has moisture in the mask, and this one is a dry mask. And when we're pushing dusty air through the mask, you can kind of see that the mask on the left does a much better job of filtering particles than the mask on the right does. So it's one mechanical demonstration of the effectiveness of moisture as a dynamic part of a mask, of the properties of a filter mask. Okay, where am I? Oops, there we go. So I'm on to the next thing now. When we take electron microscopic views, slides, photographs of different mask materials, we can see what is in a mask. This is a surgical mask here, but the idea of a layered mask is also what's working with a COVID, a N95 mask. And that is that there is a cover layer of some kind of a fabric, usually a polypropylene fabric on the cover layer. And the cover layer is made of a man-made material, a polymer fabric that is not woven. It's a non-woven fabric material. And so that the fibers are kind of randomized and crushed together to create the fabric. Then the filter layer in the middle, sandwiched between the two outer layers, is a non-woven material. It may not be polypropylene. I'm trying to think of the other melt-blown non-woven materials that it could be, but generally it's a very tiny microscopic fiber. And so under the electron microscope, it looks like this. It's still a non-woven material, so that there's enough spaces between the fibers for air to pass through, but there's enough density of fibers so that the fibers can intercept and adhere to pathogen particles like viruses and that kind of thing. And so we've got an inside layer and an outside layer that look like this, and the pieces of dust and pathogens are actually adhering to the surfaces of the fibers in these bright white dots that you can see on the fibers. And then this would be the most effective filter layer that would allow air to pass through, but would be much more effective at capturing virus particles there. So let me keep going with this. A lot of researchers are doing a lot of electron microscopy, electron microscope imaging of different kinds of fibers to see what the fibers look like in their structure under the microscope. And so we see the fibers in cotton and cotton t-shirts. We see the woven, and that's a woven fiber. A cotton t-shirt is a woven fiber. A cotton pillowcase or a linen pillowcase is a fiber that has a slightly tighter weave. It's also a slightly perhaps thinner cotton or linen fiber. We can see paper towel fibers and the fibers in a vacuum cleaner bag, and also the fibers in a piece of tissue paper. So whether you're creating fibers from wood pulp or cotton or linen, which are naturally occurring fiber sources, or whether you're using artificially created man-made fibers like rayon, satin, nylon, and that kind of stuff. Depends on the size of the fibers that you're able to generate and the way that you're able to compact them and push them into an actual fabric. We're not really able to work with cottons all that well unless they're woven into a fabric, or cottons are only available to us in woven fabric form. The non-woven fabrics have been created as filters for us to use in industry and in healthcare and as personal protective equipment. And so those are the kinds of fabrics that are available to us as fibers. Okay, let's see. Here's an N95 mask cross section to let you see the thicker fibers are the outside covers, the cover and the liner of the mask, and the inner finer fibers then are the sandwiched filter material in the middle of the N95 mask. So it's really helpful to be able to visualize what the mask looks like, to see what it takes to actually filter fibers that are down around 3 nanometers in in cross section. We need a mask that works on about the 10 to 20 nanometer size frame to be able to filter particles that are around 1 to 3 nanometers in size. And this is a 250 nanometer kind of a photograph, electron microscope photograph for us to look at. Let's see, melt blown fiber. I guess that's my last slide, because what did I do? I didn't finish the slideshow. That's about as far as I got in the slideshow. Oh, I've got an I would love to join your team thing right here. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm looking for people who are interested in this team concept. So that was the idea of the history of the development of PPE and mask development. And so here we are. My concept, the pitch that I would like to make to people, is that the idea is to take the best aspects, the best qualities of the N95 mask, and there it is right there. It says N95 on that mask. Take the best qualities of this mask. I just got to see if, I am recording good. Okay, take the best qualities of the N95 mask and take the best qualities of a fabric mask and try to combine the two. So trying to get the cut and the fit of a fabric mask so that this is flattering, so that this is stylish, so that this is a fashion statement that people would actually really want to wear. And we can do that by just refining the cut and fit of this mask and being able to put the N95 non-woven melt-blown fiber into it as a filter. And I would do that by actually creating a filter pocket inside of the mask so that you can insert, you can create filters then that are just flat, that can be, it's a flat filter that can be manufactured on a roll and then stamp cut to size. You can have the fabric mask just be a fabric mask, and all this is a frame. It is something that does nothing more than hold the fiber, the non-woven or melt-blown fibrous material filter goes inside of the mask. And when you're trying to not filter anymore with the mask, you can do things like perforate the mask by actually punching holes in the front of the mask. You can move the filter pocket opening to the center of the mask in the back, and that allows the most permeability through the mask, the least amount of restriction for breathing, the highest transmissibility of vapors and gases through the mask. And this then becomes a filter rather than just a something that blocks. What's the word? Filter and anyway. So anyway, trying to combine the best aspects of these two masks. So let me switch gears again really quickly here. Sorry, but there's so much to cover and so little time. Okay, so the bird's eye view of my workstation is this. And last time we just started the idea of working on the masks. So I have posted these various kinds of face templates. I've posted them in our coursework. This is your first project. I want you to be designing masks. I'd like each one of you to come up with at least 3 different mask designs that you can draw right on these templates that will show me, variations in mask design, and let you play with variations in mask design. So I'm going to put this one up here, and we're going to draw on this one today. So The idea that a lot of people have is that they want something that's cool and hip and new. A lot of you guys are athletes, and so you'd like a mask that would work for you as an athletic mask. A lot of you would like something that's a little bit more sportswear oriented. And what I'm really seeing a lot of is the ear loop that is a little bit more of a fabric ear loop that kind of comes right down into and becomes part of the side of the mask right here. So if we start with the ear loop and then we design the mask that is high up on the nose, because we don't want anybody beak sneaking the mask. We want people to, wear the mask high up on their nose, but we want the mask to come down under the eye and then to sweep back up here so that there's a really nice cutout for the eye right here, and then sweep back up. We want the mask to come down. And then here is where we can play with the idea. How deep do we want the mask to come down? Does the mask have to cover the chin? A lot of mask designers think the mask really needs to cover the chin and come to about this spot on the chin. So if we bring the mask down the bridge of the nose, and then we go like this with the mask, we get just enough shape so that it's not impinging on the lips, so that you can actually move your lips, you can speak clearly and not have your voice muffled by the mask. You get this contour that's happening here, which gives a little bit of a cutout so that you don't have the straight line here anymore. Now you've got this cutout. What does that look like from the front view? So once again, we're going to come up here to the bridge of the nose. We're going to run down the nose and around the eye with this thing, and then back up here again. And we're going to run down around the eye and back up to the ear cartilage again on both sides. Again, it's kind of like designing glasses, only we're not actually drawing the glasses. We're designing in the negative space around the outside of the glasses. So how does this ear loop, what does that look like from the front? If we kind of come in here with an ear loop like this and kind of come back like this, the contours of the mask are going to start to do this instead. How does that look in terms of a mask? Does that look any more attractive in terms of the design of a mask? If we bring the lower edges of the mask around the jaw and then just catch the chin right here, how does this work, in terms of a mask shape that flatters the face? We are designing in terms of, we're trying to be everything. We're trying to be fashion designers here, and we're trying to be mask designers to try to make an effective mask design. And so that is, when we compare these two masks, this one has straight cuts on the edges of the mask. This one has a curving cut on the edge of a mask, and a little bit more of kind of a wing or wedge shape, kind of going back as a integrated part of the ear loop in the sides of the mask. Do you like this better as a fashion statement, as a shape? Shape matters. Shape really determines the fashion of a thing, the style of a thing, and how it fits the face and how people perceive of it. So when we're designing these masks, we're going to be trying to figure out a shape that also performs well. The shape has to work as a mask, but it also has to look good. And so we're going to keep playing with the idea of, trying to morph this mask and try to do slightly different things with this mask in terms of shape. And we can do that with a crayon. In fact, I told you guys that I bought a bunch of crayons, and so I put them out on the table outside. I wasn't on campus yesterday, so I had all of the crayons, and these templates that I printed out were not out on the table. They're now out on the table again today. So you guys can come over. If you can't print out these templates on your computer because you don't have a printer, you can come over here to Eden Hall and grab the printouts off my table so that you've got blank templates to work with. But you can play with the idea of edges of masks just to see what happens when you change the shape, when you change the contour. I still think that this part's going to be important. The part that goes around the eye and then comes up and heads over to the ear cartilage is going to be important. But what you do here is completely up to you. What is this shape going to look like? What would happen if we made bat wings here? let's just make a Batman mask just for the hell of it. You know, we're making a Batman mask and kind of doing this kind of thing. And we're doing something funky here that's a kind of a funky shape. And then we're going to do it on the front of the mask too, just to look at it and see what it looks like from the front. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And then the whole thing is, what do we do with this shape right here, this contour? How does this contour work? I just broke my crayon because I just broke my crayon. And then how does that work in terms of shape? Is that better or is that stupid? That's what a fashion designer has to ask themselves. Does that shape work? Is it inspiring? Is it interesting? Is it beautiful? Or is it a dumb shape? Is it something that is just superfluous and just, you know, calls unnecessary attention to itself, and it doesn't do the thing that it's supposed to do? We have to take risks as designers and try on different shapes just to see what they might look like and how they might work. I want you to make at least one ridiculous mask with one ridiculous outline shape, because everybody needs to try on this idea of failure as well as success with mask design. We have to try things to see how they might work, and then know that they will or won't work, and then move on from that as we try to refine the design to find something that really does fit, that really does feel good. It has to fit and it has to feel good first, and then we can apply the idea of filtration to it afterwards. Okay, so I'm coming back to you in the, I'm going to wrap this up now. So I'm going to come back to you as the talking head view of my presentation. This is the kind of stuff that designers do. We draw it out, and then we have to make a model of it and prototype it. But the idea is that we can do better than this. This basic shape, what is this basic shape? This basic shape is a rectangle. So this basic shape is a straight contour across the top. That this is the part that's supposed to go across our nose and follow the contours of the bridge of our nose and our cheekbones and go like this. And this is the part that's supposed to go around our chin and back up again. And they are able to kind of cheat and achieve that with these pleats in the middle to make a pleated thing so that it expands a little bit. And this also has, you know, the little metal nose piece in it that bends around the nose to allow it to kind of try to form fit to the nose and make a seal, so that those of us who wear glasses don't get our glasses fogged up. But this is a shape that does not quite work. This is uncomfortable. It doesn't seal particularly well. The only thing that I really like about it is that as a narrower mask from the front, it doesn't make my face look quite as fat as a mask that wraps further around the face that comes back to the ears. Because when you put a mask on that comes all the way around the face and back to the ears, especially if it has a bright print on the mask, that really draws the viewer's eye to the mask, and this becomes the focal point and accentuates the mask. This makes my face look fat. It makes the mask look too big. And so I'm suggesting that we take this edge of the mask and we move it down, you know, more towards the middle of the cheekbone, so that this is a little bit of a shorter mask here. And then we can play with the contours of that shape to try to see how it can make the human face look better. But I think that, you know, designing, if you can design a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. If you can design a better COVID mask, you can make $1 billion by selling this to the world, because we're going to be wearing masks for another year, maybe 2 years, until we can really get a handle on this worldwide epidemic and try to knock it down with vaccines, but also try to knock it down with lifestyle changes, which may include wearing masks in public as more of a standard idea. So we may have to coordinate masks and mask materials with our wardrobe. And so I went out and bought a pinstripe suit. This is a wool pinstripe suit, and I cut the sleeve off of it. And I'm going to cut this sleeve open, and I'm going to make a COVID mask out of pinstripe, because this is wool, but it's also gray pinstripe. And when I put it up against my face, this is a neutral color. I'm going to run the pinstripes vertically on my face, and we know that vertical stripes are slimming rather than horizontal stripes, which make you look fat. If you run vertical stripes on somebody's face, it makes the face appear, or it makes the body appear thinner. You know, that's why we wear vertical stripes on our shirts and our clothing and everything. That's why they make pinstripe suits and run the stripes vertically, so that it makes us all appear just a little bit thinner. So I'm going to be making masks out of pinstripe. I'm also going to be making masks out of gingham. This print is called a gingham plaid. And a gingham plaid is a very neutralized, small plaid material that has white worked into the pattern, so that I've got blues in here. I've got medium blue, I've got dark blue, and I've got light blue are the colors in the plaid. And then I've got a white stripe that runs through this. And that addition of the white stripe is gingham. The white stripe makes this a little bit higher key. It also neutralizes this somewhat more than just having the lighter blue in here. With the addition of the white stripe, this is much more neutralized. So if I cut this shirt up and I make a mask out of this shirt and put it next to my face, the gingham is a really nice material that, unlike a floral print or some kind of a really dramatic high contrast print, this won't call attention to itself. This will complement the face, and it will accentuate the eyes. And that's what we want in a mask. We want a mask with a neutral color and a very neutral pattern that does not compete with the eyes, because the eyes are the most important part. The only thing that I like about this kind of a mask right here is the color, because this neutralized blue color tends to not compete with the eyes. And so still the most dramatic part of the person's face, even when they're wearing a mask, the most attractive part, the focal point, the thing that attracts the viewer's eyes and the viewer's attention are the eyes. The eyes are the most important part. And the reason is because this mask is super neutralized in a super light blue, so that it doesn't call attention to itself. The only thing I don't like about this mask is that it has a healthcare, medical, hospital kind of a connotation to it. It has all of that content to it. And so when we wear this talks to us, this speaks to us about disease. Plus it's a designed as a throwaway mask. So it really, they didn't spend a lot of time designing this in terms of an attractive shape that is stylish and fashionable. And so our task that I have set before us as an experience, if not something that everybody's going to achieve in this class in the next 7 to 10 days, is to try to make a mask, try to design a mask that can fit the face, and to do the kinds of things that we want it to do fashionably and style-wise, so that people would want to wear it. Plus, it has to be able to be something that you can breathe through, so that people, so that it feels comfortable, so that people would, of course, want to wear this thing and not have to fight this thing for every breath that they take. Okay, I've talked for an hour, and I'm going to leave it at that. The assignment that I've stuck out there in coursework is for you guys to continue this process and try to come up with at least 3 mask designs that you can draw on top of the templates that I have provided for you. And so that you can draw those, then photograph them and upload them to coursework, because that's the first part of designing the mask. On Friday, I'm going to try to demonstrate actually cutting out mask pieces and cutting out mask pieces out of fabric and sewing them together so that you can see the construction of a fabric mask. And my hope is that I can bring sewing machines to school. I'm going to try to bring at least 2 sewing machines to Eden Hall and set them up so that somehow over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I might be able to meet individually with you guys to try to cut out and sew your mask designs so that you guys all have prototypes of a fabric mask by Monday or Wednesday of next week. I'm going to post this pattern. This is my version of a of an Olsen mask, and so you can kind of see that this is this is the pattern, and that is the size of the thing. Once it gets made from this pattern and sewn together, it becomes this. It has a cover, it has an interior liner, and one of my innovations is to put the filter pocket in the middle. When we open up the filter pocket, it creates just a little bit of relief in front of the lips and nose, just enough so that we can breathe easier and we can speak easier when the filter pocket is in the middle rather on the sides. I think we really have to try to convince people that we can create N95 filters that can be an effective filtration system so that you can have a perforated mask and you can actually breathe through the mask rather than just have it be a barrier and that you're forced to breathe around the edges of the mask, because that's not a filter. That's an inefficient barrier. And we really have to take this design from barrier to full-on filter. Instead of a mask, it has to be a respirator. In industry, they talk about these things as respirators because it's a filtration material that you're supposed to actually be able to breathe through, and it's supposed to create a seal around the edges of the mask so that when the air seals tightly around the edges, it forces all of the breath, or at least 90% of the breath, through the filter material. And that's what I'm proposing that we do with a fabric mask. I've talked it to death today. Sorry about that. So I've got one person, Ms. Vibella, who wants to be on the team, on the presentation team. I was going to ask Ethan if he still was interested because it's not going to be too much extra work for you, but I do need people who feel like they're outgoing and able to take this concept and kind of run with it. We do need at least 2 students on the student team so that you guys are promoting the idea, because I can't actually be on the team. I can be an advisor, but I can't be on the team myself. So I need to be able to give a name and email address to the physics instructor so that he can pass it on to Invent Oregon so that we're actually registered as a team. So if anybody else would like to be on the team or would like to talk to me more about being on the team, please stay after a couple minutes and we'll just kind of talk privately about this, and then you don't have to do it in front of everybody else. So I'm going to end this for now and turn off the recording. I'll see you guys on Friday morning to continue this discussion. And anybody who wants to stick around and talk about being on the team, please stay with us. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the recording for now. If I can find the recording. Where's the recording? Where is my recording? All right, there's the recording button. So